Chinese Cultural Revolution had a massive negative impact on all aspects of life in China, slowing China's economic growth for 10 years starting from 1966. Many historical monuments were destroyed, and people turned against their own friends and families. The whole country was in chaos. The Cultural Revolution's main purpose was to modify the education and art systems of China so they better followed communist principles. Communism is a system of economics or social organization based on public ownership of property. Capitalism, unlike communism, encourages private ownership of property. The Cultural Revolution's main influence was the Cold War. It was a struggle for dominance between communist countries of the East made up of the Soviet Union and China versus capitalist countries of the West made up of countries like the United States, England, and France. These countries raced to develop dangerous weapons that were never used for fear of their devastating effects. Similar to this situation, nationalist China, led by Jessie Xu, fought for decades against communist China, led by Mao Zedong. In 1949, the communists defeated the nationalists, and Mao Zedong became the leader of the new People's Republic of China while he was chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. During his rule, many people treated him as if he were a god. China needed to modernize and improve its industrial and agricultural output because of pressures and fears of the Cold War. So Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, a major cause of the Cultural Revolution. It was a 5-year plan that began in 1958 with a purpose to achieve unreasonably high goals in China's agricultural and industrial performance. Inexperienced workers melted their own pots and built backyard furnaces in an attempt to increase production of iron and steel, which was useless by industrial standards. People who chose not to make sacrifices were punished severely. Furthermore, the millions of peasants in industrial work could not take care of their crops, so the agricultural goals were certainly not achieved. The lack of food resulted in 20 million deaths from starvation from 1959 to 1960. The Great Leap Forward ended 2 years earlier than planned because of the failure. Mao received much criticism from the Chinese Communist Party and other important officers, so he stepped down from the chairman of the People's Republic of China. But he still remained chairman of the Chinese Communist Party. A man named Liu Shaoqi took his place as the new head of state. Mao spent his years studying political economics until he was ready to take action again. He decided to launch the Cultural Revolution, a movement that would adjust the 4 olds of China's education and art structure so they were closely connected to communist principles. There were old ideas, cultures, customs, and habits. Mao planned to expel all party members who went against him and gain back his power. He began to build a power base by drawing closer to Ling Biao, China's defense minister and the leader of the army. In addition, Mao reconnected with his third wife, an actress named Jiang Qing, and a Chinese Communist Party member, Zhou Enlai. Now Mao was ready to take action. The Cultural Revolution started on November 10, 1965. Ling Biao formed a personality cult for Mao, which encouraged people to worship Mao. To promote this cult, he organized Mao's writings and quotes into a small book called The Little Red Book, Quotations from Chairman Mao. At first, this book was only meant for soldiers to read, but it soon became required for all people who thought of themselves as true followers of Mao. Soon after, multiple groups of students that were great supporters of Mao started calling themselves Red Guards. They thought whatever Mao said was the truth. These Red Guards would wear red armbands, carry little red books, and spread Mao's thoughts. Their devotion resulted in the destruction of old art and violence against people who did not support Mao.
我们每天被拉到台上去挂了牌子批判。
Red Guards were violent with their own teachers, who favored slight reform over extreme revolutionary change. Red Guards forced their teachers to wear dunce caps while they were criticized and abused. Some of the Red Guards tied up, beat, or even killed their instructors. At first, Mao was quite pleased with the Red Guards. He was so delighted that he held many rallies for them at Beijing's Tiananmen Square. But later on, he was surprised with the amount of damage they caused. In an attempt to stop them, Mao sent the army to restore order. At the same time, another group called the Gang of Four emerged. The Gang of Four consisted of four extremely powerful communists who were led by Jiang Qing. The Gang of Four was very close to Mao. Their only goal was to gain more power for themselves, so they used the Red Guard's devotion to Mao to their advantage to cause trouble. In contrast, the Gang of Four helped Mao with the overthrow of his main rival, Liu Shaoqi, who was capitalist. The Gang of Four organized a group that spread false rumors and forced Liu to confess. Liu became very angry, but he had already lost his protesting rights. This movement ended when Liu was expelled from the party on October 13, 1968. Mao saw no need to continue the Cultural Revolution since his enemy was imprisoned. Nevertheless, the Gang of Four and Ling Biao wished to continue the Cultural Revolution for greediness of power. The Cultural Revolution continued like this until September 13, 1971, when Mao found out Ling Biao, Mao's official successor, was planning to assassinate him in order to gain more control. When word of the assassination spread, Ling immediately boarded a flight out of the country, which later crash-landed because it ran out of fuel. Ling died in the accident, and we still do not know if this was purposely set up by Mao or just a coincidence. A while later, Mao Zedong died on September 9, 1976, from several heart attacks. People deeply mourned for their lost leader. About a month later, the Chinese Communist Party arrested the Gang of Four for their corrupt activities. This arrest signaled the end of the Cultural Revolution. People were so happy they held parades and drank so much that many stores ran out of alcohol to sell. The Cultural Revolution was a catastrophe to China. It was the cause of 20 million deaths and many beaten, imprisoned people. In addition, the Cultural Revolution slowed industrial and agricultural production in China. Because of this, rationing occurred and commoners lacked basic necessities, such as clothing and rice. Furthermore, Mao ordered 16 million students, including high school graduates, to do manual labor in the countryside at re-education camps by learning from peasants. Mao once quoted, "To read too many books is harmful." Unfortunately, this wasted potential talent. By the end of the Cultural Revolution, most students were still at a high school level of schooling or below. There were also emotional and mental effects too. Many people turned their friends and coworkers in, so as a result, people distrusted each other. My grandfather, Xu Mingzu, was one of the many victims of the Cultural Revolution. He participated in the Cultural Revolution because he thought he was helping China by following Mao's orders. Unfortunately, his actions impacted Ling Biao, so my grandfather and his family were punished. He served 5 years in prison and spent 5 years working at a re-education camp where he was forced to perform tough labor. These camps punished people for being counter-revolutionary. In addition, Xu's siblings were criticized and neglected by their own colleagues. Xu's father broke his backbone in a failed attempt at suicide. This kind of punishment was common during that time. However, the biggest consequence for his actions was his family almost separating. The Cultural Revolution left people scarred for the rest of their lives. Without it, China would be very different today.
对中国社会的经济、文化、政治、生产结构、人际关系造成了极大的破坏。